Hello and welcome to the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. My name is Craig Telfer and right this very second I am joined by my close associate Shaughan McGuigan.
Hello there.
And you know what happens when the David Guest and Liza Minnelli of the Terrace get together? You are goddamn right. We are going to be talking about some lower league Scottish football. Do you remember, Shaughan, David Guest in Big Brother, where a celebrity Big Brother, where they said David's dead, and everyone was really shocked, and they went to checking him, and he was just sleeping, and the person meant David Bowie had died.
One of the... I actually watched it again recently. It's just an extraordinary moment of television. Very, very funny. Very, very funny.
I'm trying to say, David's died. That's when there's someone in the house called David who's just gone for a nap. That's not how I would have worded it. Did they not have to go and like delicately peel back the covers to check if he was still alive? How humiliating.
Imagine if that's how you're woken up by several kind of semi-strangers peeling back your duvet and just checking that you're still alive. Like, what on earth has happened to you?
I mean, ultimately I'd be grateful that they're checking in my well-being, but at the same time, deeply embarrassed by the situation.
But he is now dead, isn't he?
David Guest is very much dead. Is Liza Minnelli dead?
I don't know.
I'm not going to check, but listen, if you know whether or not Liza Minnelli's dead, please go and check Wikipedia and report back to us. I don't like checking in on things midway during the podcast. You should just vibe with it. They divorced. I know I did read on Wikipedia that they did get married and then divorced quite promptly afterwards.
An odd couple, not a couple that I'd imagine being. They just feel ill-suited. I don't know how to describe it.
When I searched for David Guest and Liza Minnelli into Google Images, the first picture that came up, and I'm going to say this to Craig Fowler to share when he promotes this show on Twitter, it's of David Guest and Liza Minnelli, their wedding day. Michael Jackson and Liz Taylor are also in the photo. Absolutely bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. But nevertheless, that's something for Fowler to look forward to and something for you, the listener, to look forward to on social media. But Shaughan, we have got a lot to get through because I think this is perhaps the biggest weekend of football we've seen in the Scottish Lower League so far this season. A lot to talk about with the conclusion of the Championship playoffs, the League One playoffs and the League Two playoffs, as well as the Premiership playoff second leg. But before we get into all of that, just check in. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Good, man. Good. I had a good day yesterday through in Edinburgh. I went to see Hearts 3, Rangers 3, which was a lot of fun. A big daft game of football. You really saw the best and worst of both teams. But that's just really the wraparound for it. I got to spend the day with Chris Aitchison, of course. And Chris Aitchison, have you met him yet at all?
No, I've yet to meet Chris Aitchison. I've said this before. I have only heard good things about him.
Brilliant company, absolutely brilliant company. And spending time with him, Robert Borthwick was there, Joel Sked, Craig Fowler, all the gang was all there. But probably the funniest bit, because Robert was working for Hearts TV at the time, and he came to us in the pub with Laurie Dunsire, the Hearts TV commentator, and Gary Wales, who he works alongside in the Hearts TV. So to try and ingratiate myself with him, I said, Gary, how you doing? My name's Craig. Listen, I saw your laddie playing for Alloa the other week. He's absolutely superb. I think he's got a really bright future. And Gary's like, that's not my son. A lot of people have made that mistake because they think the name Wales, he plays for Kilmarnock. But no, I've got a kid. He's 8. This guy's about 18. So just to clear any of that up, Bobby Wales and Gary Wales are not related, and I found out the hard way.
Do you know what I was about to say? I was about to say, I did not know that was his son. And it turns out the reason I didn't know that is because he isn't.
It's not. You get one chance to make a first impression, and the impression I made with Gary Wales was not a positive one. But nevertheless...
You're a very well-researched person, so I'm surprised you hadn't looked into that a wee bit further.
Yeah, you and me both, man. You and me both. Not my finest moment, but Gary Wales, lovely man, good company, very, very dashing as well. So fair play to him. But Shaughan, enough about hanging out with former football players. We're going to do things that we normally do them in order from the big leagues all the way down to the bottom leagues. I think it's only fair that we start with. I think probably the best game of football we've seen so far this season. I don't think that's an exaggeration to say this match had everything you'd want from a game of football. Drama, high stakes, world-class goals, red cards, get it right up yous, everything, pitch invasions, blue flares, the best highlights package I think I've seen from a club, and Stranraer consistently do this, but I thought this is the best they've done this season. This is, of course, the League Two playoff final, second leg between Stranraer and East Kilbride. and Stranraer won this match 3-1. They won 5-3 in aggregate, meaning they retain their place in the SPFL for next season. Grant Gallagher opened the scoring midway through the first half with an absolutely stunning goal, but it was cancelled out midway through the second half by Keir Sampson. The match went into extra time, and with penalties looming, Craig Ross scored a header to put the Blues back in front before Aidan Gilmartin netted a third. Just as we mentioned there, the highlights package for this is absolutely incredible. Stranraer FC, their television channel is the best in the business, and we've got to pay a lot of credit to George Frank, Colin Ferguson, Loris Nelson and Brian Martin. You should be very proud of your hard work over the course of the season, and you should be especially proud of the 25 minutes that you produced to accompany this match. Shaughan, I thought this was incredible. I can't really, words don't really do justice to the ebb and flow of this match and everything that happened, but what were your thoughts on this game?
I think it's the best highlights package I have ever seen. And I'm fairly certain you're the same as me in terms of when the games go out on a Sunday and you click on the highlights and whoever it is, and it's like, right, it might be, see if it gets like about 12 minutes, you're like, oh, that feels overly long. When I clicked on this, I was like 25 minutes and 17 seconds. And I knew that was not going to be enough for what I wanted. But see, right for the word go, there's a bit where, I think maybe like a minute in, or maybe they've already done the teams, I can't really remember, and the camera focuses on a stag do. Yeah, Brian Martin says, "Oh, I was speaking to the guys for the stag do in the pub beforehand. I think they maybe said was it Durham they were from, regardless, wherever they're from. They said, oh, big fans of Blues TV. He goes, well, they didn't speak about you very much. They spoke about me. Even right away, it's like that's very, very funny. But I think we've spoken often enough about how whether it's somebody who's on Twitter or somebody who's connected to a kind of club channel, it can kind of put you off a team. Whereas when it comes to Lawrence Brodie and Brian Martin, it's quite the opposite. Lawrence
Brodie. The big Weird Hearts fan.
No, sorry.
The big LinkedIn guy.
No.
Take that back.
No, sorry, what's his name? I've completely forgot his name.
Lawrence Nelson.
Lawrence Nelson and Brian Martin. It's the exact opposite. You become more keen on Stranraer because of them. And like I was outside just there. I was walking past a shop and I looked at my phone and word had come through that Stranraer went 2-1 and I literally punched the air.
Yeah,
I was so happy
man.
that Stranraer went 2-1. But the highlights themselves, you're right, there's a kind of ebb and flow where Stranraer obviously had dominance. Then East Kilbride had dominance from, I suppose, when they equalised to probably the bulk of the kind of extra time period. And I suppose ultimately there was very much a sliding doors moment for both clubs when it comes to Joel Baldy's his first miss and his second miss, I would say especially.
Yeah, this is something they kept referring to this in commentary over and over again, particularly even during the celebrations. That I think this was the key moment in the game. I mean, Baldy he'd missed two chances. The first one, if you want to be charitable for the first one, you can maybe say it was a cross that comes in, and I think you're expecting the defender, the fullback, to get the ball and head it. Baldy, it sort of falls to him, and then he shoots it straight. I think he puts it straight at Budanalkis.
Yeah.
But the second one is inexplicably bad. As Nathan Flanagan takes the ball down the left-hand side and puts a low cross right across the face of goal, and it goes past everyone, all the strikers, all the Stranraer defenders, and it lands at Baldy, who basically has got an open goal from 6 yards to shoot at, but he hits it back where it came from and out of play. Inexplicable, absolutely inexplicable how you can miss something like that. Absolutely, there's no words. I mean, but Baldy will be waiting. I've woken up this morning thinking, my goodness, I really sold the jerseys for that one.
But to be fair, like Stranraer, like okay, they didn't miss anything as kind of gilt-edged as that, but they missed an abundance of chances.
Some good chances,
a huge portion of this game where Stranraer could have finished it within the 90 minutes. I thought it was an excellent game, but ultimately delighted. I know there's loads of people that do a lot of hard work behind the scenes at East Kilbride as well, but for the kind of fans, for the management, for the players, for the guys behind the scenes, I am delighted that Stranraer have managed to stay up. Really chuffed for them.
Yeah, I'm the same as well. I'm the same as well, Shaughan, because you've nailed what you said there. It's because of the commentary, the commentary and the highlights package. It really gives you a window into this football club, and I think that certainly for myself, when if you want to compare him to like Falkirk, for instance, like remember when it was like Lewis Connolly was doing them, you think, this guy, I'm not really into this guy, and it sort of creates that negative impression of him.
Yep.
Stranraer do the opposite of that. These highlights packages, I think that's what everyone holds them in such high regard. But on top of that, because the gym that I go to is owned by Scott Agnew, and when I'm in for my sessions every Friday morning, Peter Weatherson's like the manager of the gym. So speak to Peter Weatherson like most mornings. He's a smashing big guy, and we always talk for like 5 minutes just about football. I'm asking about the games coming up, and like spoke to him on Friday before this one, and we were talking about the previous game and how it had been 2-2, and he said we should have been dead and buried by the first half, the number of chances the East Kilbride missed. So he's very honest in his assessments about the game, and it's just really interesting listening to him talking about the team and just how excited he was for this game. So I'm the same, Shaughan. I'm absolutely delighted for them staying up. But I do think that this will have been a scare for everyone associated with the club, and it's the idea that I think that going forward they need to, harder, bigger, stronger players. I know that's that's an easy thing to say, but I think that's been the problem with Stranraer. It's technically some really, really good players in there, but just perhaps lack that bit of experience at the right moments. Need a good centre forward. That's something they've struggled with this season. I don't think Tamor and Darren Lang have really done the business for them over the course of the year. And I think if these are the things that they can address, then they can go on and kick on, because it's a fright. It's like finishing. If you want to use Montrose as the example, since finishing bottom, they have skyrocketed after that, and that's what you want to do. You want to say, like, we can't allow this to happen again, and you need to kick on and do that again. And hopefully, I know Agnew signed a new contract with them by February, something around then. So hopefully he can put the building blocks in place to kick them on. I do want to say this all the time. I want to believe in the pyramid. I think that if you finish bottom of the table, you should be relegated. I don't think you should be given a second chance. But also, I don't want to see Stranraer go down, and I'm delighted that's not come to pass.
Sore one for East Kilbride though. Like I always think in terms of when the fact that you can go through like a full season, win the league, and deservedly so, but the fact that is always, like, that's not your main intention. Like that must be so tough for a lone league club to win the league, but to feel like it doesn't really mean that much. Like that's a real kick in the teeth, I suppose. I'm
sure. I'm 100%, because you're right. It's like winning a league is a brilliant achievement, but that should lead to something. That should lead to something else. And the fact that you've got to go 2 rounds of playoffs, obviously one in East Kilbride's case because Bucky weren't eligible to contest it after winning the Highland League and not having their criteria and so on. But yeah, I think it is unfair. I do think it is unfair. So I do have a degree of sympathy for them. I think there's talk there they might have the chance to come up through the back door. Edinburgh City might not meet the criteria and might be kicked out of the SPFL. I'm not sure what the case is there. I'm sure, like for East Kilbride, you'd want to come up because you've done it on merit rather than through an alternative method. But nevertheless, I think this will be a sore one, because it feels like there's a lot of money that's been put into this project. There's some players that are down there, I'm going to assume, on big contracts, and winning the Lowland League's good, but it's not your primary objective. So it's, I suppose, just a case of just having to go again next season. It rolls on. I mean, that's what East Kilbride have won the Lowland League 3 times now. Haven't been promoted from it yet. So you just got to. There's nothing else for it. You just have to keep on going.
You've mentioned that there in terms of the Edinburgh City scenario. I wouldn't be surprised if East Kilbride do still come up. I know there was a graphic went up, and I don't know who puts it out. Must be SFA, I suppose, and it's the categories. They split it up. I can't remember what categories it's split up into, but Edinburgh City were still, and I think now have until maybe the second week in June to get everything in place. But every single column, if it had been updated, every single column was still entry. Like there was nothing that was bronze. So stadium was entry. I think finances were entry. Whatever the other column was entry. Whereas Kelty, I think 2 of their columns were bronze and entry. So I know, like, it feels like Kelty have like some I's to dot and T's to cross, but it feels like Edinburgh's still got quite a bit to do.
They've got the alphabet. They've got the alphabet to write. Yeah, they've got just the I's and the T's. You've got the A's, B's, C's, D's and all that to do. Yeah, so I hope that's not the case. You don't want to see folk getting chucked out for like non-sporting reasons. Yeah. Because ultimately, if see, for instance, if Edinburgh do leave the SPFL, it should be because they finished bottom of the division and are subsequently relegated for it. But yeah, real sore one for East Kilbride. And I presume you've read the same thread on Pie and Bovril as myself, and I don't know if you've had the chance to watch Sam North's video that accompanied this.
I haven't, no.
Well, after the East Kilbride had scored, after Keir Sampson equalised, I think the East Kilbride dugout had been getting a hard time of it from supporters, which, it's like the stand at Stair Park. You're right next to the dugouts. Yeah. I mean, we all remember what happened with Ebble at the Clyde game. But they were getting, I think the East Kilbride bench were getting pelters all the way through it. And when Keir Sampson equalised, the East Kilbride bench sort of spilled out onto the pitch, and Mick Kennedy jumped up onto the wall facing, sort of did a gesture.
All right, okay.
like that towards him. You can see it in Sam North's video. Unfortunately, Sam North's video, you see Kennedy doing the gesture, and then it cuts. Don't cut. Leave that. Keep it in. I want to see the reaction, and I want to see the response from it. But it's just, it just seems that that's something that, and I don't think that behaviour is, like, not to say tolerated is not the right word, but it's like you can't really do that. It's just, if you're getting pelters, and I'm not going to say that just because, like, if fans are giving it out to someone and the person turns around and gets right up them, then that they should be allowed to do it. If you give it out, you should be able to take it back. But that can inflame a situation by doing that. And I just think that wasn't particularly clever. Maybe from both parties, actually. But it just feels like if you're the manager going up and sort of giving it the big un.
I don't disagree, but I would imagine that there is a... In fact, Brian Martin actually mentioned it right at the end, where he said something like, I would imagine that 95% of Scottish football fans are delighted at this outcome. Something along those lines. And I suppose there is this thing where, rightly or wrongly, there is a kind of negative connotation when it comes to East Kilbride. And I suppose if that's the thing that they face week in, week out, then I'm not trying to defend it, but it must be very difficult not to try and react and give something back in that scenario.
Yeah, no, I definitely, especially and when it's such an emotional game, particularly when there's so much on the line like that. But he was fairly magnanimous in his comments after the match as well. I saw someone in Pine Bovril saying that, it's really crass comment about them wanting to do better next year. I thought, that's a perfectly reasonable thing to say. I thought just like, hope Stranraer have a better season next time around. I think everyone who quite likes Stranraer wants to make sure they have a better season so they don't finish in bottom and they risk dropping out of the SPFL. A perfectly reasonable thing to say. Very magnanimous on Twitter as well. Just wishing them all the best. But yeah, I think as well with Kennedy, it's now there's a body of evidence there to suggest that when it comes to the showdown, his teams aren't capable of doing it. It happened with Darvel when they lost their playoff against Trent? I'm thinking the same when they lost their playoff.
Yeah, you're right.
A number of players missing, and then they couldn't get into the Lowland League, and now we've got East Kilbride failing to beat Stranraer to get up into the SPFL. So there's a growing body of evidence for that. But I suppose that the go again next season, just sign more players, strengthen the defence. That's all you can really do. Give John Robertson a new contract. He looked absolutely superb in this game. I think the Stranraer defence really struggled to deal with him. But I suppose that's all you can really do. East Kilbride, just go again.
I guess we're now in a situation where I suppose it's not really a good look for Kennedy in terms of how many times he can get a club into, I suppose, this kind of position, but then not get them over the finishing line. If he can do it next season, great. Yeah. Regardless, I still think that if there was a team that was struggling maybe at the bottom of League 2, for example, if you're talking about the next step up, or a team is underachieving in League 2, I can still imagine him turning up for an interview and maybe impressing. So I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that everything would go against him, but in terms of his CV, there's a chunk of negatives here.
Yeah. But we'll kind of touch on the game a little bit, Shaughan, and we'll talk about the goals. Grant Gallagher's goal. What a time to score. I mean, this goal, please, if you haven't seen these highlights, go and watch them, because from the opening frame of a seagull just like floating above Stair Park, it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But Gallagher's goal, I mean, there'd been a lot of rat action as well. I mean, East Kilbride could have been in front, Stranraer could have been in front. It's a corner kick that is cleared to the edge of the area, and Gallagher just melts the thing right from the edge of the box, and it goes flying into the net. And what's so good about these highlights packages, they've got a GoPro camera behind the goal, and you just see that there's Truesdale's got no chance of saving that because it's just hit so powerfully and so accurately. And for the captain to step up, like, you know, big games demand big players. It was a real captain's goal in the circumstance. Something like Steven Gerrard might have done in his pomp at Liverpool.
Imagine Andy Gray trying to decide that goal for Steve Farrell.
And he's thinking, I'm going to hit this. And you know what? He does.
But his technique was excellent. You're right in terms of the kind of alternative angles. So there's one from right behind the goals. I was like, oh, that's a great angle. Then there's one from slightly further back. It seems to be in amongst the fans, so you get their reaction as well. Aye, tremendous. But was that his first goal of the season? But,
I don't know.
I'm sure they mentioned that was his first goal of the season, but it was an absolute humdinger. Yeah,
definitely. And as we say there, Stranraer had a number of chances, not exactly clear-cut chances, but good openings. Same with East Kilbride, they had a couple of good openings to take the advantage. It was Keir Sampson's header. And always, when watching this going, I was thinking, could somebody have done a bit better? Because it's just a sort of looping header that's put over the goalkeeper. I'm not sure who it is. It might be Sean McIntosh, it might be Craig Ross in the line. But it reminded me a wee bit of Tom Boyd's own goal in the 1998 World Cup. You know, when it's sort of creeping over, it's like, how's no one able to get something on that?
I suppose it was like, you're right, it was like slow motion. But ultimately, that's why Stranraer are in the position that they're in, because there is that they're not great at one end, not great at scoring goals at one end, albeit not necessarily evidence on this game, and not great at keeping them out at their end.
Lewis Bodanowski's had a good game though.
Very good.
I think if it wasn't for him, East Kilbride would have won this. And then after Sampson's goal, the game goes into extra time. Balde has just, we've discussed it there, but it's just still inexplicable. You know, it's one of those things where I think that in years to come, that's how João Balde will be known as, the man who missed. So it's like a terrible James Bond movie. But then there's Craig Ross that pops up with a header from a corner, and it's great. I mean, this was brilliant when this goal goes, and this is in 117 minutes. This goal goes and just a corner's chucked in. Ross gets his header. Not the cleanest of header, but it goes right, just him sprinting into the corner. The substitutes coming out, people on the pitch, blue smoke, Brian Martin in Dreamland. Just amazing, man. Just absolutely amazing. And then it was followed up just minutes later where I think it's Darren Lang tries to take the ball into the corner. Two East Kilbride players come over to get it off him. It finds its way to Gilmartin, who just dribbles into the box and curls a shot in. And his celebration, because he had played for East Kilbride earlier in the season before going on to Stranraer, he decides to celebrate by knee sliding in front of the East Kilbride fans on the opposite side. So just ridiculous stuff, man. Just ridiculous stuff. And there's a Stramash at the end. There's I think somebody puts a tackle, Lewis Spence puts a tackle in, players swear up, shove each other, Spence swings, I think Craig Napier, the referee, tries to remonstrate with him and stop him, but he turns around and swings at him. Thankfully, he didn't connect with him. But then he gets sent off, and I think the goalkeeper coach, Xander Cowie, got sent off as well for East Kilbride. Peter Weatherson was booked at one point, and so it was just daft. It was just daft at the end. And then the best bit and my favourite bit, I don't know what you thought, but see right at the very end where they're celebrating and Brian Martin just keeps saying, like, this is the best day in my football history. Yep. This is the best day in my football history. I thought that's incredible. And I'm not joking. I was a wee bit tearful listening to that, because that's ultimately what it's all about. I know that Stranraer put a really nice video out. I think it was on Friday. They're talking about the club's success, you know, winning the third division title, winning the Challenge Cup under Campbell Money in the mid-90s. But when something like this is at stake, the history of the club's at stake, the status of the club's at stake, I can understand why a moment like that, in the 117th minute, 121st minute, when those goals go in and you see what it means to everyone, I can understand why Brian would say that is better than like a league title or a cup win.
Aye, because it's joy plus euphoria multiplied by relief.
Yeah.
Which ultimately gives you that. And they kind of invoke the spirit of the Norwegian commentator. He started just rattling off people who have been born in East Kilbride over the years.
John Hannah, Muriel Gray, Ali McCoist, Lorraine Kelly, Hurley's Roundabout, Kirsty Young. Your boys took a hell of a beating.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. I've watched it 5 times.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. And that's That's what it's about. And it's funny, like this season in League Two, you've seen what a title win means to a group of supporters with Stennismuir, and you see the celebrations for that, and then you see what just like staying up, and you're like staying up, Stranraer, we're staying up. Brilliant, and it's joy, and it's different kinds of joy, and it's great to see a brilliant game of football, brilliant highlights package, and you really have to say fair play to both teams because they made it what it was. Great stuff, man. Great stuff. Aye. What a way to finish the season, man. What a way to finish the season.
Loved it, but I mean, in terms of relief, I mean, you can understand why when you look at all the other teams that have went down to the lower league. Like, I don't think it would be a stretch to think that if Baldy has scored one of those chances, then suddenly Stranraer are like Albion Rovers or Cowdenbeath or East Stirling, for example. Just a team where it looks like they have no chance of coming back. And so as a sliding doors moment, this could be enormous.
Yeah, because on top of that as well, it's not just like East Stirlingshire and Albion Rovers, central-based teams who you imagine it'd be easy enough for a big pool of players to attract from. Stranraer, if you don't have that card of SPFL football, what can you offer? Yep. Like players, it's very difficult. I'm sure there was one point when Derek Ferguson was the manager. Somebody might need to correct me. When Derek Ferguson was the manager of Stranraer, they tried to have local sign players locally, and it's very difficult to do because there just isn't the talent pool down there. So that's why they recruit players centrally, train centrally, and then bust them down. But aye, brilliant. Well done to Scott Agnew. Well done to Peter Weatherston. Well done to Lawrence Brodie, Lawrence Nelson, Brian Martin, Steve Martin, George Frank, Colin Ferguson. Commiserations to East Kilbride. But that's it. You go again. The sun will still rise in the morning. I think they've got a cup final to look forward to, and then take a break and recharge the batteries. Aye, but delighted for Stranraer. Shaughan, we'll go to probably the second biggest game, because this is a huge game, but I think this game was big as well. The Championship playoff final second leg, where Inverness Caledonian Thistle were taking on Hamilton Accies up in the Highlands, and Accies won 3-2 on the day, meaning they won 5-3 on aggregate. The Accies are promoted to the second tier. The first time asking, well, Inverness Caledonian Thistle have been relegated into League One. The Accies had taken a 2-1 lead into the second leg, and I think the contest was pretty much done after 12 minutes when Kevin O'Hara and Lewis Smith both scored. Cammy Kerr pulled one back midway through the first half, but O'Hara netted from the penalty spot just before the halfway mark, and although Austin Samuel grabbed a late goal for Cali at the death, too little, too late. And this is Duncan Ferguson is now 2 seasons, 2 teams relegated. What do you make of this one, Shaughan?
Quite a weird game to see in terms of, I know you're saying that the game was essentially done and dusted after about 12 minutes when Hamilton went 2 up, and ultimately you're right. But in terms of watching it, I thought the first half, like Inverness were probably the better side. However, there was a huge negative for them, where every time Hamilton went forward, they scored a goal. I mean, Hamilton didn't have very many other kind of forward forays except those 3 goals. So you had this situation where you had Inverness, who were far and away the better team in the second half of the first leg. I would have said the better team in the first half of the second leg, and yet they were 5-2 down. And as much as they made changes in the second half, don't necessarily think it made things any better. Like, we spoke about the fact that it certainly mentioned in the last podcast about how John Rankin doesn't necessarily, maybe didn't manage that first leg particularly well.
Yeah. But
I thought he managed this. Him and his players managed the second half in this one very well, and they were very, very, very comfortable and ultimately over the piece. Deserve to go through, which I'm quite surprised at. I thought Inverness would have had 2-0 for them, but no, fair play to them, and well done to Hamilton bouncing back at first attempt, because not too many teams do that.
No, just look at Falkirk, for instance. Haven't been down there for 5 years, but no, fair play to the Accies for bouncing back first time. I watched this game in the Diggers in Edinburgh. I had about 6 or 7 pints during this. The game was on a small television up the back. So, Shaughan, I'm not perhaps the best person to be talking about this game, because I can't quite remember the goals as they went in. One of them was a penalty. I suppose it's more interesting for this to talk from Inverness Caledonian Thistle perspective, because this relegation just is an absolute disaster for the club. And you saw at the end, fans on the pitch there just protesting against the chief executive, Scott Gardner. I think Ross Morrison, that's the name of the chairman, protesting against their running of the club, because the club's been pissing away close to like not far off £1 million a season.
Yeah.
And how they find themselves in this position and then just dropping out of the third tier. Because to me, Inverness Caledonian Thistle, they're like a good second tier club with aspirations of getting into the Premiership, and if they get there, they can hold their own. But fucking hell, what a nightmare it's been! What an absolute nightmare! Won the Scottish Cup 9 years ago. Mm-hmm. To here they are now, Scottish Cup finalists this time 12 months ago, and here they are now. It's almost like a sense of disbelief. And I think that Ferguson, over the piece, he would say, and I think he did say in his post-match interview, that during his time at the club, they got something like 40 points, which would have been enough, if that had been extrapolated over the course of the season, would have been enough to keep them up. But you didn't keep them up. And I think there's just such a degree of negativity towards him. He's got another 2 years left in his contract. But I think it's perhaps in everyone's best interest that guys like Gardner, guys like Ferguson aren't there next year, and they can go again under somebody like, I don't know, like Charlie Christie's one of the names that's mentioned, someone like that. I don't know.
I totally agree. And listen to Ferguson's comments afterwards. They're quite odd in terms of how he approaches it. So he's right in terms of 41 points over 36. I think it was 36 games. 41 points over 30 games maybe. Whatever he was in charge of. I think Dodds might have had 6. Then he maybe had 29 games by the time he kind of came in. So technically he's right in terms of you extrapolate that out. Probably would have been enough to keep him up. But by the same token, he also took over in, was it end September, October-ish?
Yeah.
So plenty of time. That's plenty of time to keep Inverness in the league. And he hasn't managed it. And he speaks about, we were 10th and we're miles clear of Arbroath. We've finished 9th and we're miles clear. It doesn't matter. 9th is a relegation playoff position. So that's not good enough. And in terms of behind the scenes, in terms of Scott Gardner, in terms of the rest of the board, I suppose, there's now so many decisions in terms of how this club has been run, not just this season, because they've been hemorrhaging money for season after season after season after season. So there's a lot of things wrong with the club. They're now in a situation where they're in League One, and like the away support will be in the dozens rather than the hundreds. So that's going to have a massive impact. They've appealed this Battery Farm. My goodness, that felt like it was eggs all in one basket when it come to their financial security going forward. So it feels like sometimes we speak about a club that's got relegated and we talk about them kind of fumigating the place, and sometimes we're just meaning the playing squad. It feels like Inverness need fumigated in other areas as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I just I didn't see if there was a post-match interview for Ferguson. The last thing that was posted on the Cali Thistle YouTube channel was the previews with Ferguson and one of the players, I mean, Canny Harper. But there's a guy, John Attenborough, I think he's a disabled football fan that I'm sure it might be the case. And he goes and does tours and stuff. And I was interviewing he was interviewing Ferguson after the game. And he asked a question about whether or not James Carragher would be staying on for next season, which I thought was a strange question to ask him whether a loan player was coming. But anyway, Ferguson, guess what Ferguson mentioned? When asked about James Carragher, guess what Ferguson mentioned in his post-match interview?
I've not seen it, but I'll hazard the guess at plastic pitches.
Yes! Yes, 100%. He said that James Carragher, he's unlikely to stick around for next season. A lot of these loan players won't stick around for next season because it's League One. They don't want to be playing in League One, and that's fair enough. But on top of that, James Carragher doesn't like playing on plastic pitches, and there's 9 of them in League One next season. Actually 8, but who's counting? Since Dumbarton and Cali Thistle will be in the division next season. You would tear your hair out just listening to that. Like it's if you're going to be in a division where every other week you're going to be playing on a synthetic pitch, and say you lose, say Cali Thistle lose at Stennismuir or lose at Annan, no one is going to want to hear Ferguson complain about the fact these clubs play on synthetic surfaces. I find it extraordinary that we're at this stage now and he's still going on about them.
I find them very irritating to listen to, and I don't have any real great kind of love or dislike for Inverness. However, if I was an Inverness fan and I was listening to that kind of output after a game, I would find it infuriating.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see what they go here. I was reading in Pie and Bovril, administration might happen next week. There's a talk of moving into a part-time model. it's remarkable just how you can go from, like I say, like lifting the Scottish Cup to just this position in a number of years, just bad decision after bad decision. And I don't know what the answer is. Certainly, I think though by moving on, some of the people behind the scenes that might do the trick. But again, enough about complaining about Inverness's relegation. Like fair play to Hamilton Academical, because it's been a funny season for them. But it's ultimately they've got what they wanted from it, and that was to get back into the Championship early doors. You know, I think for the first part of the season, neck and neck with Falkirk. I think they blinked first and they dropped points against Kelty Hearts maybe. And then since then, they were just never able to keep pace with them. But ultimately, that doesn't matter because they're back to where they should be.
Rankin, John Rankin alluded to this in the post-match interview afterwards on Alba. So he said that their priority this season, or their target this season, was to win League One. And he said, I realised, he used the expression early doors. Now, I don't know what time frame that means, but he said early doors I realised we weren't going to. Now, I presume that means maybe after 3/4 of the season. Don't really know, but that's the term he used, early doors. He said at that point it was then a case of, I can't remember the expression he used, but ultimately it was trying to get the players to kind of rebound and come back and go again for the playoffs. And as much as, I suppose, Hamilton fans have had issues with John Rankin this season, we've spoken about the fact that it's difficult to be kind of too praiseworthy of him, I suppose. But ultimately, his target this season was to get Hamilton back in the Championship, and he's managed to achieve that. So I suppose he will start next season with some credit in the bank, and it'll be interesting to see how they do start next season. The other thing I thought was quite funny, I think it was during this interview, but there was a pitch invasion at the end, and they were trying to do post-match stuff with Stephen Craigan, Ross Tokley, and it might have been John Rankin at this point, I'm not entirely sure, but the Hamilton fans basically came over to the edge of the park to where they were doing the interview, so they were all kind of jumping over the wall at Ross Tokley's back, and at one point I honestly thought that Ross Tokley was about to fight 14 teenagers from Hamilton. I was like, this could be the most extraordinary piece of television. Like, he was really angry. Like, he kind of moved out the way, allowed them to kind of do whatever they needed to do, and then eventually they kind of got fed up and went away. It was both holding my attention, but at the same time quite excruciating. I wanted to look away, but couldn't.
Is this an Alba, so I can go to get this an iPlayer then?
Yes, it was on Alba.
Excellent.
I did think that Ross Tokley was about to lamp at least 7 of them. But regardless, in terms of Rankin, he's achieved what he was supposed to. He's got them promoted. Fair play.
What do you think Accies will need to do next season? What areas do you think they'll need to strengthen in for next term?
Interesting. I think in terms of that, I think they still have Ryan Fulton, but the chat always seems to be that Ryan Fulton will be leaving. Yeah,
I'm sure. In fact, I'm sure he posted a message on Instagram and Twitter saying that he was leaving.
Right. So in that case, I do think they need to upgrade in terms of goalkeeper.
Dean Linus is fine though, isn't he? Linus is a fine goalkeeper.
Is he a first choice Championship goalkeeper? Not entirely sure. I think the rest of they have a big squad, and I think there is a kind of smattering of talent throughout it that probably is just about good enough for the Championship. Not sure about Kevin O'Hara. Like, I like him, and I think he's one of those players that is very good at third tier. Whether he's good enough to make that step up, and if that's your first choice striker, which obviously he is, then it maybe feels like forward areas is a position that need to kind of pad out as well.
Yeah, I think so. With Akeem Rose presumably going back to Ayr United as well, that's definitely an area that needs addressing. But no, fair play to them, fair play to John Rankin. I think you're right in what you say. It'll be interesting to see whether or not he's afforded that time. Say they get off to a bad start. I don't know. I just kind of think that people just will tolerate him if it's going well. I just think that relationship. It's not really for me to say, but I'm just thinking back to, again, 12 months ago when they played against Alloa in that daft playoff, and when they went 2 down and everyone just turns en masse and just starts chatting at the board, and so still a lot of fences to be mended there. But Shaughan, we will drop now into the League One playoff final second leg. This is in the north of Edinburgh. Ainsley Park, Dumbarton, we're taking on the Spartans, and the Suns are back in League One. Woo, 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 woo. They had a 2-2 draw with the Spartans. They took a 2-1 aggregate. They took a 2-1 lead, beg your pardon, into this game. And it started frantically when Cammy Russell scored to put the Spartans in front. I was like, yes, brilliant, game on. Then Michael Ruth scored immediately after. I was like, oh no, we're back to square one again. Ruth then scored perhaps one of the best solo goals we've seen this season. Really, really well taken goal in 53 minutes. And although Blair Henderson converted a late penalty, it wasn't enough. The Suns have won the contest, and after 3 years down in League Two, they're back up in the third tier. Shaughan McGuigan, what's your take on this one?
Delighted for Dumbarton. First of all, just all the reasons I've already kind of mentioned. Soft spot for them. Fraser Clark, quite enjoy going to the Rock. I think it's a decent stadium to visit, so I have a real soft spot for Dumbarton. In terms of the game, I only watched about this morning. Obviously, I was at the Raith game on Friday night. Just kind of seeing the scores coming through. I was like, my goodness, 2 goals after 5 minutes. This must be an absolute slobber knocker. Can't wait to watch it. I don't know if there's been a bigger discrepancy between the opening 5 minutes of a game and then the remaining 85 minutes. After about half an hour, I started doing like chores. I started doing like the dishes and kind of like dusting and things like that. Yeah. That wasn't really holding my attention.
Because I knew we were going to be recording this podcast, Shaughan, and I know you would be at the Raith Rovers Thistle game. I thought, you know what, I'll take one for the team. I'll watch the Spartans against Dumbarton. You're absolutely right what you've described there. Really good start to the game, really frantic start, and thinking this is going to be a brilliant contest. I'm quite disappointed, to be honest, when Michael Ruth scored that goal because there was no tension. Ultimately, you kind of want a wee bit of jeopardy, and all the Spartans are back in it. Oh, no, they're not. Just within the space of about 60 seconds. But Ruth's second goal, I think that's one of the touches of the season.
His first touch.
I think he takes it away. I think it's Bradley White, number 33, he takes it away from.
I thought he moved away from Paul Watson. Could be wrong. I thought he moved away from Paul Watson.
I beg your pardon, it was Paul Watson. But the touch to take it away from him and leave him in dust is a beautiful touch, so well controlled from a player who spoke about him the last time you and I were talking. Such a good player, such a talented forward, and just a great finish, to let the ball to kind of come in from his right foot onto his left and to drill it with his left. I don't think Blair Carswell can save that. Just very well placed, not necessarily the hardest hit shot.
I don't want to be critical. I think it could have been a lot closer to Blair Carswell and he probably wouldn't have saved it.
Carswell didn't have a good game, man. That first one, I can't remember who it was. Is it Sean Crichton that headers the ball? And he basically just drops it on the line, and there's Michael Ruth from like a yard out to finish it. Not particularly good piece of goalkeeping from the big man there. But I'm just trying to think if there's anything really to say about this, because it was both teams. I thought both teams in this were fine without outstanding. It was. Oh, sorry, on you go.
All I was going to say was that I tell you what I was surprised at in terms of Carswell. Like he has been with Spartans for a while now. Didn't know a lot about him. I look watching them. I think there's a lot of talent in that Spartan squad. I did think that was one area that they could upgrade, and I presumed he was maybe mid-30s, maybe like coming to the end of his career. He's only 28.
No way.
He's only 28.
He's young as that. I thought he was about 33. I mean,
I
knew he was.
I thought he was mid-30s.
But you say like he's younger than you think he is. So 33, but no, 28. My goodness, that's. I think that's the Pilton Shilton. That's what they call him. So I think that's. But it's a position, Shaughan. It's like when you come into the division, like for these teams, you upgrade. That will be a position that Dougie Samuel might look to upgrade on next season for next season. Maybe in fullback areas as well. Maybe a couple of bodies in the middle of the park. But Spartans should be really, really proud of the season they've had in the SPFL. I think when we did the big preview podcast, we had them mid-table, probably too good to get involved with anything going on at the bottom, maybe not good enough to challenge for the title. I mean, ultimately, didn't challenge for the title, but the fact that they've been in top 4 contention pretty much since the beginning, you've really got to say fair play to them. And I think that they'll be disappointed that they didn't do better against Dumbarton, because Dumbarton might have been there for the taking. I think both teams will have thought that was a really winnable tie. But the fact that they couldn't really land a meaningful blow on them when it counted, you'll be disappointed with that. But similar to East Kilbride, just go again next season. You know what the SPF what it takes to be a success in League Two. You're almost very successful in League Two, and I think they'll look at this season. I think they could probably fancy to go and win the division next year. I honestly don't see why not. If you keep guys like Craigan And you've got those experienced guys like Callum Booth and Paul Watson and whatever Mark McNulty wants to do. I know Mark McNulty hasn't necessarily been fantastic for them, or certainly in his goal return, but you're able to keep these guys and then augment them with youngsters, maybe sign a new goalkeeper, strengthening central midfield. Really good chance, man. Really good chance.
I think so. The only thing I thought was quite interesting was Dougie Samuel was interviewed before the game, and the question was something along the lines of kind of really taking the league by storm. There was no expectation in terms of Spartans getting promoted this season. Do you almost feel like the pressure is off? And he said yes, but blah blah blah, whatever the answer was. But ultimately, it was that it felt like there was no expectation for them to get promoted. And everything you've said in terms of when we done the preview pod is absolutely fair enough. We didn't think they'd be challenging to go up the season. We thought they'd probably be fine, but no more than that. However, I do think, and I suppose you would need to speak to a Spartans fan in terms of the level of expectation, but when it gets to January and you're adding players like Callum Booth and Mark McNulty, and even the fact there is now a sprinkling of names, so you've mentioned Craig and Paul Watson was brought in as well, and there now is recognisable names in that team. So I do think that if they build on that, depending on how the group that they keep together and who they bring in, yes, there will be surely the expectation levels rise, because it feels like they're bringing in players that maybe other teams in League Two wouldn't be able to bring in.
Well, it certainly helps if the manager's your father-in-law.
Yes.
You're going to...
But not all of those players. That, like, Dougie Samuel is the father-in-law of all of those players.
Imagine there's probably a football team full of father-in-laws. I mean, the football team where a father-in-law is in charge of this team, and that's... Maybe if someone knows if there's ever been a team in the history of the world full of father-in-laws, please let us know, and Shaughan and I can reference it next time we're doing a podcast. But great for Dumbarton, this. Absolutely brilliant for Dumbarton. I got on the podcast last time. In fact, generally any time we've spoken about Dumbarton, we've spoken about how you really can't quite trust Stevie Farrell when it comes to the big games. And I would say that that's fair, because there's a body of evidence to suggest that when it comes to these big games, a Stevie Farrell team is going to choke. You think about against Edinburgh City in the playoffs when they were relegated. Think about the Annan game last season. You think about generally when it comes to like a really meaningful game, when there's something really on the line, Dumbarton have tended to falter. So I think it's a fair thing to say that he does have a wee bit of a hoodoo about him. But there's a Dumbarton fan called George Drummond. This is a man who also supports Rangers, the Spartans, Stennismuir and Broomhill. He sent me it was a gotcha tweet, like said about Stevie Farrell bottling things, and he used the word bro when he was doing it as well. So I just want to say, like, it's not quite the gotcha that you think it is, because there was a substantial body of evidence to suggest that yes, he doesn't win in the big games, and the law of averages states if you participate in a lot of big games, you're eventually going to win one of them. So well done, George. Been a great season for you with Rangers winning the League Cup, Dumbarton getting promoted, Stenny winning the league. Only Broomhill, that's the only team that really let you down. I wonder as well, this might go a long way to repairing that relationship between Farrell and Dumbarton supporters. If you go back to that Annan game at half-time when he was walking off the pitch, pretty nasty. When they were 5 down, and it had been a bad season where they had chucked away at the top of the table against Stirling Albion. What am I trying to say here? Maybe it's similar to Rankin, where you can tolerate him for until he's no longer winning. But you'd like to think that something like this, people can be like, yeah, that was good actually. I think I've got Stevie Farrell's back when it comes to this, because next season's going to be difficult. I'm going to assume that Dumbarton, Stennismuir, Annan, maybe Kelty will be all the sort of teams that are sort of down towards the bottom of the table. So it's going to be difficult, and you'll need that buy-in from supporters. So hopefully this has gone a long way to repairing that in time for next term.
I think so. And if it is, I think it'll be one of the few examples where a manager has went so far one way in terms of fans being kind of so dead against them, and then bringing them back. Like, I think that's very rare. Very, very rare indeed.
Yeah.
And the fact that Farrell was given an extension when people weren't entirely sure about him, because at that point, the Dumbarton were starting to go through that spell where it looked like they were falling away. And it's only really maybe the last quarter of this season that it felt like he's starting to pull it back. And certainly those 4 playoff games is the first evidence we have that said that this whole kind of, or the bottle it kind of scenario, it's the first evidence we have that might not necessarily be the case. And if they have a good season next time around, then we probably could put all the rest, we could park all the rest of it in terms of negativity and then kind of move on. However, we also both know what it's like, and if they start the season poorly, he's probably back to square one.
Yeah, on top of that, you'll probably be without their two best players for next season, because I think Michael Ruth will be away, Finlay Gray will be away, and it's how you can find a striker that can do the stuff that Michael Ruth does, and how you find a central midfielder who can really do a bit of everything like Finlay Gray can. Somebody who's got that tenacity, but also that just a good football player, and somebody who can finish and score goals and create. That's a really difficult thing to do. But
on the plus side, I think what we've spoken about when it comes to Farrell down the years, regardless of tactics or how well he's thought of by the players or form, generally seems to recruit quite well.
Yeah, he's actually just thinking that there. Yeah, he does. I think that team that Dumbarton put together, I think on paper, might have been the best squad in League Two. I mean, not necessarily the best starting 11. Obviously, that was Stennismuir had the best starting 11. But there's really like the constituent parts. And maybe actually, if you were to go through it player for player, if you want to compare it to the Stenny team, you could make a really, maybe if you were to go through it player by player, I think you'd probably get a team half and half actually, Dumbarton and Stenny, if you were to go through them bit by bit and put them together. Nevertheless, fair play to them, fair play to Dumbarton, and well done to Fraser Clark, because it's a great guy and it's great to see him enjoy himself. I sent him a text message afterwards and he said that he was on the pitch, he cuddled Mikey Ruth, and it's just really nice, man. Just really, really nice. Really
I seen his post on Pine Above when he talked about cuddling Michael Ruth, and because I was looking for him on the pitch at full time, and I couldn't see him, and I wondered if he maybe grabbed him after the game or if he actually ran on the park. I had in my head that Fraser wouldn't run on the pitch. I didn't think he had it in him, but there you go. Turns out he did.
Brilliant, man. Well done, Fraser. Well done to Dumbarton, and commiserations, Spartans. Brilliant. Not the best game of football we've ever seen, but I mean, I suppose we can't be spoiled all the time. Not every game is going to be Stranraer versus East Kilbride. Sadly. But imagine all games were just really exciting. Then you'd kind of that would just be the normal, and then I'm not sure if it would be exciting.
Because then you'd have a situation where like normally exciting games would become disappointing.
Yeah. You need your Spartans 2, Dumbarton 2. That's it. You need games like this. Not every game can be Stranraer 3, East Kilbride 1. But Shaughan, we'll come on to the final game of the weekend. We've kind of touched on it there, but this was the Premiership playoff semi-final second leg between Raith Rovers and Partick Thistle. Raith Rovers 1, Partick Thistle 2 at Starks Park on Friday night. Finished 3-3 in aggregate, but it's the Rovers who won 4-3 on penalties. Raith had taken a 2-1 lead from the first leg into this game. Blair Alston scored 2 goals, sandwiched between a brilliant header from Ross Matthews. And the game went to penalties. Rovers won 4-3. Young Rico Dyack missed the penalty for Thistle to death, and Lewis Vaughan stepped up, put his away. Rovers progressed to the final. It might be between St Johnstone or Ross County. We don't know yet. We're recording this about 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, so we don't know who they'll be playing next. But nevertheless, Shaughan, I want to know your thoughts on this. You were there. Tell me all about it.
It was weird. I didn't really enjoy this at all. Literally not at all. So
didn't think so,
the
man.
first 15 minutes or so were reasonably tense, but I thought we're okay. Then Partick Thistle took the lead from that free kick, and I thought at that point, it's going to be one of those kind of evenings, is it? And then didn't really enjoy it again until obviously Raith equalised, and then there was a wee 10-minute spell where Raith kind of popped the ball around reasonably well. I thought, right, everything might be okay. Last 5 minutes of the first half, then the goal to put Partick 2-1 up at half time. Again, you go into the second half in a reasonably negative frame of mind. The entire second half, as much as maybe the last 20 minutes or so, Raith maybe had a wee bit more time in Partick's final third. I just felt that there was a kind of clawing sense of inevitability that Partick Thistle would win the game. And then at full time, like going into the extra time period, I goes, right, well, surely now, like Partick Thistle have had such a congested schedule, surely Raith are going to be the likelier winners in this extra time period. That wasn't the case. Again, Partick Thistle looked like the like there was a brilliant save from Dubrovsky towards
Harry Milne, the one the Harry Milne shot that he put past the post.
Dear me. And then, I mean, before we even got to that, I mean, Brian Graham's miss in the last minute of 90 minutes.
She was brilliant, Shaughan. Just on that Brian Graham miss, there's a photo that I still image behind the goal. Graham's lying on his back, can't even believe he's missed it. And there's every single Partick Thistle player in frame is down with their heads in their hands. Of all the players, see if you didn't know any better, you'd have thought that's the big bastard centre back that is somehow
that's
broke
exactly
into.
What I thought. So when it came back to Brian Graham, so I didn't know who it come back to, and you're just like, oh, and I was ready to stand up and just leave, and then blazed it over the bar, and I just thought, right, what kind of Humpty central defender has just launched that over the bar, and then it turned out it was Brian Graham.
It's the best striker in the lower leagues.
The best striker in the lower leagues. I could not believe it, but I do think that it was interesting watching it back in terms of like listen to Liam McLeod and Michael Stewart. And they were talking about the kind of ebb and flow of the game. And I suppose maybe there was, like watching it back when you know what's happened and you're not quite as tense, there was to a degree. However, see when Partick Thistle were going forward, there was a lot more incisiveness and they were creating good chances, or they were working Dubrovsky. Whereas with Raith, they were creating half chances and not really working David Mitchell. So at full time, a massive sense, more a sense of relief than an outpouring of joy, I suppose. The game was maybe not quite as one way as maybe I thought it was at the time, but certainly, and maybe over the two games it was reasonably close, I suppose. But if I was a Partick fan, I would be, and I'd think I was very, very unlucky, I suppose, ultimately, because I do think they had over the two games actually probably the better chances to win it.
Yeah, the goals as well. Like, I don't know about you, but see Alston's second goal, it really reminded me actually of his goal from the first leg. Really similar, where it's a Brian Graham flick on, a really, really nice bit of play, really ingenious bit of play from Scott Robinson, and then an Alston finish. So that was nice. I don't think there's much Dubrovsky could have done about the first goal. You know, it takes a huge deflection off Scott Brown in the wall for it to go in. Second goal, that flick from Robinson is really, really good. Great header from Ross Matthews. The ball in from Liam Dick. Like, he really, I don't know what he does, but it really cuts across it. It really clips it really well. So it's kind of, the ball's got a funny arc to it.
Maybe it was just me. I don't know. But the ball had only made maybe half of its journey from Liam Dick's boot to Ross Matthews' head. But I think I already knew it was going to be a goal. Like, it just seemed perfectly weighted to take out, this must have been Milne, that he couldn't make it and it was going to land perfectly for Ross Matthews. All he had to do was make sure he connected with it and guided it correctly, and it was going to be a goal. And you're right, it was a great goal. And even, it was a great cross and a great finish. But that move had started like ages before. Like, Raith had been in possession for maybe 90 seconds and there wasn't a huge amount of times that they managed to do that, because I think that how we spoke about the first leg in terms of the fact that Partick Thistle's midfield didn't really cope with Raith until Chris Doolan made the substitutions. So, like Olsen coming on and Bannigan coming on. I thought how Partick started the game, Partick played well, but they also managed to nullify Raith in their best area. I don't think Raith got any time on the ball whatsoever. And yes, Partick played well. I think maybe nerves and tension might have come into it to a degree for Raith. But no, I thought Partick were very good on Friday night.
How did it feel then going into the penalties?
I suppose when I went in extra time, I think, right, so surely Raith are going to be fresher here, and that wasn't the case. And then when it came to the penalties, I just thought Partick would have been leggier. And that wasn't the case whatsoever. And so I did breathe a huge sigh of relief, and it was, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was police, I don't know if it was referee, when they were going to take the penalties at the Starts Park side. But regardless, I mean, the fact that I watched Partick Thistle's first two penalties and that was it. So I didn't watch the other 8. Really? I found it far too tense to watch. So even right at when Raith won and I started celebrating, it was only because I could see like everybody. Like, it was just because of the roar. And I thought Dubrovsky had saved at least one. Like, Dubrovsky just kept guessing wrong for all of them. I think he went the right way once and then went the wrong way 4 times. But just by his reaction, I presume they must have got one. No, it wasn't the case whatsoever. No, I couldn't watch it. I found it a slog to get through. And I suppose it was because, obviously I want Raith to get promoted, right? What a laugh that would be if they could get into the Premiership. The fact that it went from a club where, Christ, you go back 2 or 3 years with a Goodwillie thing. You're like, how do they bounce back for this?
Yeah.
And now the position that they're now in, an incredible kind of turnaround. So fair play to everybody involved. But I just felt that if they'd managed to finish second and miles clear of Partick Thistle and then not get to the final, you would kind of consider this season to be kind of a wee bit anticlimactic.
Yeah.
And now the fact they've got to the final, I think whatever happens now is absolutely fair enough. And as I said, or as you said, sorry, we don't know who they're going to play in the final. I would maybe fancy their chances against St Johnstone, less so against Ross County. But I think regardless now, everybody will look back on this season in terms of how it's made them feel. And it was like once the pitch invasion had kind of dispersed, that got my nerves a wee bit.
Yeah, I'll come and touch that in a second.
But like Ian Murray afterwards, and Ian Murray said this a few times now, he talks about the fact that he thinks that it's his, or partly his, responsibility to give Raith Rovers fans and the people of Kirkcaldy something to be proud of. And see, just in terms of this season, and you'll be exactly the same. You'll sit with your pals and they go to Steny games, and you'll be sitting in a pub or whatever before a game or after the game, and you'll start reminiscing, and you'll say, oh, mind that time where, and you might have kind of 10 cornerstones that you come back to each and every time when you get into a kind of reminiscing period in the pub. There might be 7 or 8 moments in this season alone for Raith Rovers. Now you go, remember that time when Dylan Easton's won against United, Scott Brown's won against...
Scott Brown's goal against United.
Like Lewis Vaughan scoring 2 in the last minute against Queen's Park, the Ross Millans Panenka against Queen's Park at Hampden, the penalty shoot against Partick. There's been so many moments. So if Ian Murray regards one of his tasks to make Raith Rovers fans proud, then I think he's achieved that this season. So fair play to him.
That's good, man. That's good. Part of me wants Raith Rovers to go up because obviously I want to see you happy. Part of me wants them to stay down because if you are supporting a Premiership club, Shaughan, you're no longer allowed to participate in the lower league podcast, and that means am I going to do these myself? Am I going to do these myself? I don't know. I don't know. I hope that's not the case. But you mentioned it there, Shaughan, the pitch invasion, and I thought, well, that's fine if you actually get promoted into the Premiership. A pitch invasion's fine. The job's kind of not even half done. You still are really 2 big games to play.
I didn't like it, and it kind of feeds into a couple of things that I think Raith Rovers, in terms of the board, what they've tried to do, and what the results have been in terms of trying to accommodate this singing section, for want of a better term. But they tried to do it right at the start of the season, where they sold them so there's 500 seats in the railway stand, and it's right next to the away end. So that was a singing section for the very first day of the season against Dunfermline. It didn't really work because it's so far away from the rest of the Raith Rovers fans. So it was difficult to, if they started a song, fair enough, couldn't really hear them to join in. I'm sure Dunfermline fans maybe heard them, but like the Raith fans behind the goals didn't really hear them. And so, well, how do you accommodate, because you've sold season tickets all through the stand behind the goal? So how do you accommodate this singing section? So for this game, season tickets weren't valid. So what they've done was they kind of cordoned off a section right at the front, made that the singing section, and to a degree, like, see, to start with, I thought it was pretty good. Obviously, to a degree, depends what your opinion on pyro is and things like that.
Yeah,
I thought the atmosphere was generally good. I thought I kind of understand running the park because it's a kind of outpouring of joy, I suppose. But like when Raith scored the equaliser, they were throwing pyros on the park. I thought that was rubbish. At full time, and I probably sound like an old man shouting at clouds here, but I just wanted to applaud the players. Like, I really just wanted the players to like, eventually they were able to come out and bring their kids and stuff, and that was okay. But there was a huge delay in that happening. And it was actually, I saw pictures of Starts Park this morning, and loads of the seats, whether it's happened on purpose, whether it was an accident, but see, there's loads of seats where that section was sitting, and they're all smashed to bits. So that's going to cost the club a load of money. And you think to yourself, you've ultimately displaced a load of season ticket holders that have probably sat there for decades, for example, put a load of money in the club, and we've tried to accommodate a singing section and move these people that have sat there forever to allow this section in. And there's no really self-policing.
Yeah, that's...
So, and whether that's worthwhile to to have a slightly better atmosphere. I'm not entirely sure, but I found the whole thing quite frustrating.
Yeah, that's disappointing. I mean, it looked, watching it, like I mentioned watching the Spartans Dumbarton game, obviously with the Rovers Thistle game, when any extra time put that on, and that's something I couldn't understand why we're having a pitch invasion here. But then to hear that sort of the element there with stuff getting chucked on the pitch, not fantastic. So how do you think? Well, we don't know who they're going to play. You say you fancy a chance against St Johnstone, a bit more cautious if it was Ross County.
Yeah, for a couple of reasons. I think guys like Jan Danda and Simon Murray would cause Raith Rovers defence a good bit of bother. I mean, bear in mind that back four that finished against Partick Thistle was Liam Dick, a left back, Ewan Murray, a centre half, Scott Brown, a central midfielder, and Ross Matthews, also a central midfielder. Like what I said, I suppose, the last podcast about Keith Watson causing an issue, lad, I still feel that's relevant no matter who they play in the playoff. I thought Dylan Cord was okay. But still, this is a guy that 12 months ago was in the Lowland League and has a handful of senior appearances. To rely on him against any Premiership, even a poor Premiership forward line, is a big ask. And I think even a bigger thing is, if Raith Rovers play St Johnstone, then they would be without James Brown, who's at the club alone. Aye, okay. So that's exactly, if they play Ross County, then they're without Kyle Turner.
Oh.
And you know something, see Kyle Turner over the last half dozen games or so, he's been excellent. Certainly more like the Kyle Turner that I expected us to have signed. I thought he started off poorly. Ever since he's had his haircut, funnily enough. Right. When he arrived, his hair looked terrible. He's had his haircut and he's played very well since. But he was excellent. He was excellent on Friday night. And to set up against Ross County, against, I think, a better team without one of our more informed players will be very, very difficult. So yes, I'm hoping that St Johnstone end up 11th today.
Brilliant. Chris Aitchin's got great hair. Just thinking of that. He's sort of grown his at the moment as well. So he just looks really cool with it. I suppose that's is this the last Lower League podcast we're going to be doing? We'll probably catch up next week to talk about the final.
But I'll be there. So I think you might be doing something with Mr. Craig Fowler.
Oh, brilliant. Well, that's good. I can't have the best, so at least I can have the rest with yourself. But no, that's, what a ride it's been. I'm sure we were talking about doing something, I think we've mentioned it before, like Falkirk's Wilderness Years.
Yes.
We'll have to do some of that. I'll have to research that. But Shaughan, I've already started the big Lower League podcast. We no surprise to know that I've already started working on that. There's a lot of work goes into this podcast, this big Lower League podcast. So I'm looking forward to catching with that. But brilliant, this is a lot of fun to record, and it's great when the games are as fun as that game at Stair Park. It's just so much fun to watch back on. Brilliant. Just well done to everyone at Stranraer because it's class. But please, there's not a lot left remaining. We've got a couple of games in the Premiership. We've got the Scottish Cup final, and we've got the playoffs to look forward to. But other than that, I think that's about it.
And
with
another
the
season done.
Another season done. So, I mean, for this final run of games, please enjoy your football. But unlike Aidan Gilmartin sliding his knees in front of the East Kilbride fans, enjoy your football, but please enjoy it respectfully. That is all we can ask from you. That is all we can ask from you. But Shaughan, as always, the pleasure has as well truly mine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, and take care. That's I'm pointing at you. This is for YouTube. I'm pointing right at you. Enjoy yourself. Cheers.